Hello everyone, welcome to week 6. This is your overview video. So this week's assignments include a quiz, the lesson 5 quiz, week 6 reflective note, challenge number 5, the unthing challenge, and the mid-semester evaluation, which is for course improvement purposes only, not for a grade that will count towards your final grade in this course. So starting off on the quiz, I just want to remind you that the learning materials for your quizzes are from your assigned weekly textbook readings. The chapters this week are lesson 5, part 1 and 2. Your reflective note this week will be about college online courses and social media, which should be a good primer for the mid-semester evaluation about this course. However, you are going to think about the online format through an anthropological lens, considering its impact on people's behavior and interaction. When you reflect on how social media is either a tool for connecting or perhaps a distraction and creates disconnect, perhaps you can find a way to explain how it's a little bit of both. I also look forward to seeing if you can connect what your point of view are on some of the concepts discussed this week, like the luxury trap of our comfort items, the barrel model, post-humanity society, and the promises of the internet, our general mediated culture, or specifics like the Instagram effect. The challenge this week will be to unthing, which means we will give up something. We are still in the midst of our 28-day challenge, which is about learning new habits. So that's focused more so on a specific behavior or skill we want to learn. Yet in order to learn new habits, we also have to confront and modify or stop completely some of our usual old habits. So don't be surprised if you've already experienced some difficulty trying to replace the old with the new. But with this challenge, and challenge 5, the unthing challenge, we will see more so how we are focusing on how change comes as a result of things, specifically tools and technology, rather than just behaviors. However, you might want to give something up in this challenge that helps you progress in your 28-day challenge. Perhaps that is something to think about now that you are roughly halfway through with that challenge. After you decide on something to give up for 48 hours, it could be television, it could be your laptop, it could be your car, it could be your cell phone. After you decide, then you begin your abstination for 48 hours. And during that 48 hours, you want to keep a diary on the prompted personal reflections on the assignment page. This is step 1. Following this, you will scale up your reflections to think about the relationship that the item you gave up has with society, rather than just yourself. You will have to think about how material thing is connected to different structural aspects of humanity, thinking about the barrel model here, and how culture is something that we need to gauge its relative position in society in a more holistic sense. This challenge is not due until 2 Fridays from now on February 24th. So you have a little time to plan what it is you're going to give up. Planning ahead might be really important if you're giving up something like your laptop or cell phone or your car. So you might need to plan ahead or around your online homework due dates or plan for taking public transit to and from work. Also, your debrief post and discussion with your classmates won't be due until that following Sunday on February 26th. And then lastly, the mid-semester evaluation can be found on its own standalone module underneath this week's module. It's a 3-question free response questionnaire. This evaluation is not about your progress as a student, so it's not like the pre and post test. The purpose is to gauge what is important and what is working and what is not working for students taking the course, and to help the faculty and instructors of the course think about what sorts of changes can be made while the semester is ongoing. Each response is anonymously recorded, and I will read them all and put them together in a summary for our course coordinator, Dr. Moritz, and a list of possible changes that you all have suggested could improve the class in the second half of the semester. This can be a huge help to us as instructors to improve the impact of our teaching. So please don't skip out on this just because it doesn't count for your grade, towards your final grade. I also want to give you some reminders about the learning materials, what those include this week. So we have a series of videos like we usually do. We have this weekly overview from myself. You have the lesson 5 video from Dr. Wesh. You also have an introduction to YouTube from Dr. Wesh. It gives you an idea about how to view and interact with YouTube. Gives you a few ideas actually that can be put to use. And then Humans Need Not Apply is our video that's going to help prime our ideas for our unthing experiment, as well as our reflection this week, especially in thinking about how social media and how online courses affect our jobs and our employment in the world. And then we're going to begin challenge 5. This comes with its own video. This video is about giving up cell phones and going to the city of Tampa, where Dr. Wesh takes a few of his students and trying to navigate the city without his cell phone. And then our reading this week, again, is lesson 5, part 1 and 2 in The Art of Being Human. So I just want to leave you with some field notes from Guam to talk about a little bit where technology fits in with historic preservation. So on a tour recently of the locations on Guam that are registered on the National Register for Historic Places, I was informed of the architectural aspects of a couple of places that helped me understand how preservation goals were met with the uses of technology that were not used in the original design and construction. In particular, I learned that many of the reconstructed and restored homes in the historic village of Inalahan, Guam, had been given concrete reinforcement to add to the resiliency of the structures so that it could better withstand the stress of typhoon scale weather over time. I also learned that the Talpak Bridge in Agate, Guam, roughly a 240-year-old bridge that was built during the Spanish colonial period, had utilized an alternative building material to concrete called grasscrete for its roadside parking lot. When I think about how each setting introduces a technology in the form of a building material and design element to help aid in the preservation of a historic place, I started to think about how the two materials might also be viewed as innovations and related to one another. Both provide a new strength that is uniquely their own, and the weakness of one is the strength of another. And that might be more common than we think when we consider why one tool is used over another tool or why innovations occur at all. For instance, the concrete was used to reinforce the building for extreme weather, especially high winds and rains. However, the grasscrete has the ability to filter water through its lattice structure so that it meets with groundwater below the surface to utilize the natural hydrology of the landscape for water shedding purposes. The permeability of the grasscrete isn't necessarily something that you would want on the siding of your home in the middle of a typhoon, or at least it wouldn't provide the resistance that concrete could. Yet, due to the resistance to water, concrete can pose groundwater shedding issues and result in flooding as it directs water to sewage systems, which can cause its own sort of infrastructural damage to the surrounding area. Yet, because these two technologies exist today, they can both aid in the goals of historic preservation in their own way, while we remain aware of their strengths and weaknesses. Outside of its application, concrete is not the most environmentally sustainable building material, and grasscrete is able to significantly reduce the amount of concrete needed to create something like a parking lot. Although they may be a far cry from the sort of high-tech gadgets that we regularly use to plug into global media, one big reason that we have these options at all is because we have progressed our technologies to fit our desires and ultimately reduce the amount of labor of what we do. In this case, the labor saved is hopefully exponential in the long run. When we are using these technologies, we're hoping to create longevity and resilience in the structures we build and preserve so that over time, there's less labor needed to maintain them and less risk to their destruction. In most cases, this is a net positive outcome, meaning that despite some inherent cons, the pros outweigh them to the point that an option becomes our usual go-to. That could mean that our technological options lead to significant changes with either its pros or its cons. So let's consider the scope that we view the progress of what progress means today, and how change in that meaning of progress might be reflected in choice to use grasscrete instead of our regular concrete design. So outside of, again, this useful application, concrete is not the most environmentally stable or sustainable, excuse me. In a cultural landscape where climate change and environmental disasters are common in public discourse and as globalized events, we can think about how an innovation like grasscrete reduces the use of heavy pollutant producing material like concrete, and then about how more aspects of natural systems like hydrology or heat island effects or weather disaster events are increasingly being considered in architectural designs. They may not result in an automation or some interweb reality, of which the field of preservation has also included, but nonetheless, we can see how the making of technology previously with a high carbon footprint would pressure climate change and environmental shifts that subsequently pressure technological innovations that react to those changes. Hence the move from just concrete into grasscrete. Okay, that's all I have for you this week. I hope you enjoy the lessons that we have to learn about technology, tool use, and enjoy your unthinking experience. Okay.